Coming up this week in computer hardware, new MacBook Pro, Microsoft's $3,000 all-in-one. The Internet of Things is broken. 1050 Ti's are shipping. And hey, let's talk Google Pixel. All that and more coming up next on Twitch.
Netcasts you love.
From people you trust.
This is Twitch.
Bandwidth for Twitch is provided by CacheFly at CACHEFLY.com.
This is Twitch, This Week in Computer Hardware, episode 387, recorded October 27th, 2016. Battle of the Alternative Input Devices.
This episode of This Week in Computer Hardware is brought to you by IT Pro TV. IT Pro TV is an easy, entertaining approach to online IT training. For a free 7-day trial and 30% off the life of your account, go to itpro.tv/Twitch and use the code TWICH30. And by the Ring Video Doorbell. With Ring, you can see and talk to anyone at your door from anywhere in the world using your smartphone. It's like caller ID for your home. Go to ring.com/Twitch to get up to $150 off a Ring of Security kit with their limited time offer.
Welcome to Twitch, This Week in Computer Hardware, Twitch Weekly Show. The aim is to bring you the most useful, most informative, most speculative. No, actually, this week it's probably the most snarky commentary on PC, mobile, and occasionally gaming hardware. A lot of PC gaming, a little bit of console stuff, but today it is all about the long-awaited MacBook Pro refresh and the not-so-long-awaited Surface Desktop. Mr. Ryan Shrout joins me from beautiful Florence, Kentucky, where I believe he may actually be in his new home or work home.
No.
Can you hear us? Oh.
No, the goal is we have a truck set up for Sunday to do the move.
Yes.
We had internet installed on Monday that appears to be working. And, if nothing else blows up, then the goal is to have everything moved on Sunday and hopefully have everything reconstructed to a point where we can record this show again next week.
All right.
Yeah.
Should we just start off with Microsoft? The hours ago, Apple announced the new MacBook Pros. Earlier this week, Microsoft introduces the Surface Studio all-in-one desktop PC. And probably the biggest deal for a lot of people were like, oh, it folds flat. Yes, just like Lenovo started doing several years ago. But the other thing is, it's an interesting combination, right? A 4500 by 3000 pixel, 28-inch pixel sense display. It's a 3:2 aspect ratio, 10-bit panel, 8 gigabytes to 32 gigabytes of RAM, a Core i5 or Core i7. Graphics range from a NVIDIA GeForce GTX 965M to a 980M, depending on which version you get. Rapid hybrid drive options in 1 or 2 terabytes. You're looking at, I'm just going to, the Surface dial, which we'll get to in a second, but we're looking at a $3,000 all-in-one with a Core i5 processor at the entry level.
Yeah.
It's pretty. It's got a 4.5K screen. It's 3x2.
Yeah. Is it 3x2? Yeah.
3x2. 4.5K, I think, is how they're calling it.
Right.
That's 63% more pixels than a state-of-the-art 4K TV, according to Microsoft.
I believe that.
But the Surface Dial is probably the biggest breakout of this, right? So it's a touchscreen, and they've got a little hockey puck. And when you interface the hockey puck to the screen, you get rotating dials on there. And, my first reaction to this was, A, why do I need this with a touchscreen? And B, probably more importantly, I was laughing because when you go to the Surface Dial website, which is where we're looking at right now, it's a new tool for the creative process, a completely new way to interact with technology. And apparently nobody did a Google search for USB knob when they decided that this was the most original thing ever, or they would have found Griffin's PowerMate USB, which is, 15 years old at this point. But if you it's interesting, right? You can use it on the screen. You can use it off the screen. The crew at Penny Arcade I should say, one of the artists there got pretty extensive with the Surface before it shipped. So it was interesting to watch him react to it. As somebody who draws comics, like 150 massive, gorgeous, detailed comics a year, plus all the other art he does. I found a really great article I forwarded on Twitter where he talked about the interaction. I just think it's curious to watch, right? Like 2 or 3 years ago at CES, it was like, it's going to be voice interaction with your PC. It's going to be gestures. It's going to be eye tracking. It's going to be, and certainly we're working on voice interaction with the computers in a fairly big way, especially on mobile. The Google Assistant on the Google Pixel is fantastic. Google Pixel is pretty fantastic too. But it's curious to watch us kind of get way back into the pen, the keyboard. Okay, we've got this super knob. This, part of me, as somebody who loves volume knobs, something if it works better than the PowerMate USB, I'm in. It's a little expensive at $100. The Surface Dial, but I just to be able to turn the volume down, I would almost be willing to spend $100, or I could just attach an external volume control before you start tweeting and emailing at me in rage. But it's just so expensive for what it is.
It's not just that device, but the system in general. I think there's some interesting. They made some interesting
system in general.
Yeah, there's some interesting decisions that went into this, right? Like if you look at it, the processor, like we said, it's a $3,000 machine with a Core i5, 8 gigs of memory, and a GTX 965 GPU, 965M GPU with 2 gigs of memory, and that's a fairly low performant discrete GPU with only 2 gigs of memory on it. It's very surprising they have 3 options, configurations: an i5 with 8 gigs, i7 16 gigs, i7 32 gigs. The bottom 2 have a 965M, and the top one has a 980M discrete graphics. The 980M is, about on par with like a GTX 970 or so, maybe around a GTX 1060 if you look at it based on the current generation. And it's a little bit like, you start to wonder, like, why didn't Microsoft use a Pascal-based GPU in these platforms, right? They're more power efficient. They're higher performance. You'd be able to, make the claim that you might be able to game on some of these types of some of the configurations here if you did that. That's confusing me, like whether or not this was a cost issue or a design cycle issue. Like, hey, we finished this a while ago and we were waiting on software, so the hardware was finalized back in March or something like that, and we didn't have the capability to update it. The rapid hybrid drive is also interesting because it's listed as 1 or 2 terabytes on that, right, but they don't really give any more detail on what kind of storage you get, right? So is this a hard drive with an SSD cache? I think the picture I saw, it's not a 2.5-inch drive, it's an M.2 form factor. So is it just an M.2 SATA device then that they're just calling something fancy like rapid hybrid drives? I don't really know. Or maybe there is a 2.5-inch drive in there, and the part that I saw was an M.2 and it was the cache. So for as expensive as a device it is, and as beautiful as the display appears to be, they talked about being the thinnest production LCD that exists. It's still got really good touchscreen, DCI-P3 color calibration or color capability, individually color calibrated. The form factor is great. The idea of the zero gravity hinge or whatever they call it, it looks really good. I would love to be able to interact with it and see how it actually works. I know Alan was concerned about if there was any wobble or bounce to the screen because of that hinge. I have reasonable expectations that they've done pretty good. Yeah. But it's just odd enough. They're using Skylake processors. They're not using Kaby Lake. Kaby Lake has only been announced as a dual-core hyper-threaded part, and these are quad-core parts. So that's why. But either you announce this several months ago, or you announce it several months from now, and you include the quad-core Kaby Lake parts with it. I don't know. There's not a huge gap there, but it seems a little bit oddly timed. To be honest, and some of the hardware selections seem a little bit questionable. But in terms of design and capabilities, and the Surface Dial, it was new to me. If it might, and it might have been to most people in terms of the idea of it.
Right.
The video they made, kind of demonstrating the capabilities of it, was really impressive. I don't have any artistic capabilities, so I have no need for it, probably, unless they think of some other interesting use cases. But still cool to see.
I should point out that the $99 Surface Dial does not come with the $3,000 starting price.
Of course,
Surface all-in-one. It's also. I keep trying to dig in to find some of the information as to. I believe I can use the Surface Dial with a Surface laptop, but I don't think I can use it with other computers. But I'm still trying that out. Does not make it particularly obvious.
Yeah.
In any case, it's curious. Very, very curious direction for Microsoft to move in. Much like the touch bar on a certain laptop we'll talk about shortly, I'm very curious to see who ends up using it in the real world and if they actually end up using it. I've certainly seen a lot of, jog and shuttle dial use on professional editing stations. Mm-hmm. The whole I'm going to twirl to select a color. I don't know. I wait with bated breath. $299 VR headsets from Microsoft did not nearly get as much coverage. Are we post-peak VR? Is everybody bored with VR? Does it seem like nobody made a big deal out of this? Or maybe a perfectly practical $300 VR headset, if it actually works, just seems so mundane compared to a $3,000 all-in-one computer.
I mean, that's probably part of it. In my mind, it's Microsoft spent so little time on them that kind of predisposes us to spend less time on them as well, and kind of the initial news coverage. And it's also, they're not pushing these as gaming headsets. They're pushing this more in line with, the Holo Tour demonstrations, kind of your desktop expansion. What do they call it? Windows holographic, I guess, is the technology name they have for that, where you basically go into your productivity Windows environment and are using VR headsets for that. They didn't give us a lot of specifications. They didn't tell us like what the frame rates were going to be, the screen resolutions were going to be. We just know that they were going to be $300, and apparently from partners like HP, Dell, Lenovo, Asus, and Acer, which is the major OEMs essentially at this point. One thing that's interesting, if you look at these pictures, I saw somebody on Twitter asking this. Excuse me. It almost looks like there are hinges on the front of them, as if they are meant to like flip up in some way, right? Like you wear it on your head and you put it on, take it off, like just flip up, flip down type thing. That would be an interesting kind of application usage for it. But these all appear to be corded. They're all wired headsets. These aren't untethered devices.
I don't think that's a bad thing at this point, given the amount of 6-degree of freedom tracking.
Yep.
Certainly not a HoloLens.
Right. And the 6 degrees of freedom tracking, essentially what that probably means is that you don't have to have an external camera to use it. Right. It can track forward and backward, and as well as anything that an accelerometer would be able to track. So the cameras more or less exist on the headsets themselves. So still interested to see, like, they didn't mention timeframes for these. They only mentioned price. They didn't talk about specifications. A little bit about there was a guy who stood perfectly still on stage and was going through a tour of some, monument in Europe or something like that, right?
Right.
A very kind of Encarta encyclopedia style integration of VR, right? Where, that's pretty cool, but that's not what the rest of the VR world had really been talking about. But if you can get it cheap and it works with all Windows devices, all Windows 10 devices after that update, then maybe it's worth talking about when we actually see them.
We have no idea what kind of controls might come with this, or VR controls.
Right.
Partnering with PC makers is what Microsoft said about the headsets. They'll be coming in 2017. I think this is something we might hear a little bit more about at CES, if not much later next year. So, cheap, especially, even compared to the PlayStation VR. 25% less than that. So it's got that going for it. Microsoft Windows 10 Creators Update formally announced. I had completely missed this.
This was also part of that same event, right? Where they talked about this kind of at the early part of it. I admit that I don't necessarily understand. I don't know. The biggest part of this is that it's coming with a new version of Paint called Paint 3D.
You know what? I was so obsessed. I was so obsessed with the idea of them finally redesigning Paint that it didn't even occur to me that this was part of the whole Windows 10 create. It was like Paint, a new Paint, and the rest of the Creators Update went over my head. I mean, it's frustrating, right? Because I'm pretty sure if I type into this machine 3D, oh look, 3D Builder, a trusted Windows Store app. And I still can't really do the things I want to do with it.
They showed a phone application that basically, was working with one Windows phone today that does 3D mapping of physical objects that then you can then import into the Paint 3D application, manipulate it. They announced native integration for 3D printers, right? So you'd be able to print whatever you make from that Paint 3D application, which is kind of interesting. They showed some new video editing applications. The whole idea of using the VR, the Windows holographic stuff is built into the Creators Update as well. So, and it's not a paid update. It's just kind of what's going to be the free release, the next major feature release of Windows 10, which was apparently codenamed Redstone 2, which I had not heard about beforehand either. So they're saying early 2017 is the time frame. Rumors point it to be March. So version 1703. Look forward to that, I guess. Yeah.
Wait for the update. Oh my goodness. Yeah, it's interesting.
That may give us a timeline. Oh, sorry. They may give us a timeline for the VR headsets then as well. If the holographic update isn't going to be pushed until March, then no sense having those OEMs selling those headsets before then too.
We should take a moment to thank our sponsors, IT Pro TV people. Demand for highly trained, experienced cybersecurity professionals continues to grow because you know what? There's a lot of broken internet out there and a lot of problems with security. Hiring managers are looking for relevant certifications, and IT Pro TV is the best way to stay up to date with current IT certs. They got over 1,000 hours of content, more than 30 hours are added weekly. You can stream courses live and on demand worldwide to your Chromecast, Roku, Amazon Fire TV, Apple TV, or PC. You can learn at your own pace and on the go with your mobile device. Course topics include Certified Information System Security Professional, CompTIA Security Plus, CompTIA 8 Plus, and Ethical Hacking version 9. October courses include CCNA routing and switching, installation, storage, and compute with Server 2016, Windows operating fundamentals, Red Hat Linux, and networking with Server 2016. Transcripts let you follow from start to finish or jump to any part of the video. If you just want to go over something another time or skip ahead to the good parts, 100+ step-by-step virtual machine labs, and the Transcender practice exams, $109 value, allow you to get hands-on without breaking all the stuff at work. Subscriptions are still the best value, but courses are available on Amazon Video Direct. And if you're currently signed up for an enterprise account with an IT Pro TV competitor and you're subject to rate increases, IT Pro TV will match your previous year's pricing of that account so that you and your team can learn at an affordable rate. Who's using IT Pro TV? Try Harvard, MIT, UC, San Diego, Stanford, and quite a few more. Do yourself a favor. Visit itpro.tv/Twitch to access the most popular IT certifications. Premium certifications are normally $57 a month or $570 a year, but we got a special offer. Try it free for 7 days when you sign up using our code TWiCH30. That's TWICH 30. You'll receive 30% off the lifetime of your account. That is less than $40 a month or $399 for the entire year. Just visit itpro.tv/TWICH. Use the code TWiCH30. Try it free for 7 days, plus save 30% off the life of your account. And we want to thank IT Pro TV for their sponsorship of This Week in Computer Hardware. MacBook Pro, big furor in the last couple of days as pictures were leaked of the new MacBook Pro. Mostly from people who deal a lot with Linux and or virtual machines and were like, where is the escape key? The big change to the MacBook Pro, of course, is the Touch Bar, which apparently has a matte finish. Neither Ryan and I were invited to the Apple event, nor do we ever expect to be invited to an Apple event again. But people who did get their fingers on the Touch Bar said it was matte. So it gives it a little bit more texture, a little bit less shininess. It's really interesting. The idea is that the buttons will change with the apps or the features you're using inside of the apps. Hands-on, people seem to think they make sense. You can, according to some of the stuff, you can like rearrange buttons. You can drag buttons from the screen down to the touch bar, which I love. Just a simple idea with, because if there's a single feature you use constantly that's buried, you should be able to drag it down to the touch bar. Would be pretty cool. Yeah. Touch ID is going to be there so that the MacBook Pro will automatically power on when you hold down the Touch ID button. It's essentially a butterfly keyboard from the tiny MacBook that's been blown up, and a huge trackpad, which I am a big fan of the idea of. 4 Thunderbolt USB-C ports, a 3.5 millimeter headphone jack, which I think a lot of people were curious about after the iPhone 7 emerged without a headphone jack. I am of mixed feelings with one. I love that it has more, Thunderbolt / USB-C ports. That said, I really would have liked a nice USB 3.0 port, so I didn't have to use an adapter or another cable or buy another $60 in cables. Micro SD card slot would be nice, but I think those are going away whether you like it or not. 13-inch model starts at $1,500 with no touch bar. Comes with 2 USB-C ports and a 2 gigahertz dual-core Intel Core i5 processor, and a underwhelming but not particularly surprising 256 gigabytes of storage. 15-inch models get the touch bar, start at $2,400 for a 2.6 gigahertz quad-core i7 processor, 16 gigs of RAM, and again, a 256 gigabyte SSD and a 2 gigabyte AMD Radeon Pro 450 GPU. And if you want all of the shiny, you're going to drop $4,300, which is slightly more expensive than a Surface all-in-one. That'll get you a 2.9 gigahertz quad-core i7, 2 terabytes of SSD storage, a 4 gig Radeon Pro 460, along with 16 gigabytes of RAM. So 13-inch model is available today, shipping next week. Touch bar models are available to purchase today, will not ship until November. I'm fascinated by the touch bar. I am fascinated by the Surface Dial. I have great curiosity as to which one of these will or will not, or if both of them will be heavily adopted by users. Right. I think the MacBook Pro has some advantages in the sense that they will probably sell a lot more MacBook Pros than the Surface PCs, but there are a lot of potential Surface Dial users out there. What'd you think? Were you excited?
I think it's pretty interesting. Disappointed. I just read that there's no haptic feedback on that touch bar across the top. There's no a little, like, I don't know. It just makes sense to me, right? As much as it's right, as it is a part of the iPhone now, I thought that would have been there. I think that the idea of the Touch ID is really cool. If they integrate that with apps and services and stuff on the Mac, that's going to be a big advantage in terms of just getting rid of passwords, and the benefits of that on the iPhone are substantial. Hardware-wise, these are Skylake-based parts. They're not Kaby Lake-based parts, which is, again, similar to the Microsoft announcement. It's kind of, I don't know, it's you either announce a little bit too early or you announce a little bit too late to get the right hardware in there. And there's no significant advantage to having Kaby Lake over Skylake, maybe, except for, responsiveness and performance and stuff like that. So, but obviously Apple just decided that they didn't want to wait that long, or they had delays in other things that caused them to push back a little bit from when they originally wanted to announce these things. I think the capability of that touch bar looks awesome. I don't really need, like, they were very proud of like autocomplete on the touch bar, and that just seems counterintuitive to me. hey, now you can put emojis in all your emails and stuff. But the success of it really comes down to the per application integration of it and how the API works for people like Adobe, and will Google implement stuff like that for its browser, right? All the stuff they were showing was using Safari. But will Chrome use it? Will Firefox integrate with it? Will Microsoft Word integrate with it? The other ecosystem, the rest of the ecosystem of applications is really what decides whether or not that gets used. Remember, Lenovo had a thing where they got rid of the function keys a couple of years ago. It wasn't nearly as complex or probably as well implemented as what Apple has done, but they eventually reverted back and restored the function keys. Different market, different customer base, different capability of accepting dramatic change, I guess, from those different markets as well. Screen looks great. The integrated Radeon, AMD created a new brand just for this product launch as well. The Radeon Pro for mobility parts, Radeon Pro 460, 455, and 450. Right. They're all Polaris based, fairly moderate performance levels. Right, 1.86 teraflops for the highest end Radeon Pro part, but AMD is obviously and reasonably, to be expected, proud of them being the GPU inside these machines that will no doubt sell gangbusters. It's expensive though. The models with the touch bar are approximately $400 over similarly spec'd systems from the previous MacBook Pro generation.
Yep.
So that's a lot. That's a lot to pay for a little bit thinner, a little bit lighter, and oh yeah, you've got this touch bar, LCD touch bar screen at the top that you're not sure how much you're going to like it, how much software is going to be integrated into it, that type of stuff. So interestingly enough, I saw that the maximum spec on the new Microsoft Surface Studio is $41.99, and the maximum spec on the MacBook Pro 15-inch is also $41.99, with very similar specs: Core i7, 2 terabytes, et cetera, et cetera. Nice little bit of carryover there. Although the GPU in the Surface Studio is definitely gonna be faster than what's in here. So,
interesting.
Yeah. I'm not gonna buy one, but I definitely would like to get one and try it out. I want to be able to use it and see what it is. What it's going to be about. 10 minutes with it's not going to tell you whether or not it's a useful feature. It's one of those things where you're just going to have to use it for a little while.
Oh man, when they weren't talking about the MacBook Pros, they were talking about Apple TV. Apparently there are 8,000 applications. 2,000 of them are games available on the Apple TV tvOS, which seems like maybe 7,000 more apps than I feel like I've seen. In my search for other things to run on my Apple TV. They'll be coming out with a TV app for the tvOS on the Apple TV that allows you to find all of your TV things, right? It'll be on iOS, Apple TV, work with Siri. It's got their single sign-on, which they do for tvOS, which makes it really easy to have multiple, basically to log into all of your various services inside of the Apple TV, although in some cases it makes it almost impossible to log into those services on non-Apple devices. I'll gripe about that in another show. Apple has not had any measurable success kind of bringing everybody's been expecting for years for Apple to bring together a collection of sort of an online streaming cable alternative centered around the Apple TV, which has never really worked out, I think, the way Apple wanted to. So Mr. Cook notified everybody that there are something like 1,600 Apple TV apps, and that's kind of like the same problem Roku has, in which case there's 3,000 applications, 2,960 of which you probably never care about, and maybe 10 of which you'll actually use with any degree of regularity. So the idea here is that they can give you some place to find all the content you want without having to force content providers into using or dealing with their terms for using a application. I'll be curious to see how it turns out to be in real life. I mean, we use Apple TV at home. I use a Roku at home. We'll be very, very curious to see how that ends up in the real world once it actually ships. So,
yeah,
just thinking out loud there.
Yeah. A couple of other interesting things on the MacBook Pro as I went through the store and looked at stuff. One, the one I would pick if I were to get one is $27.99. So, my lord. But on the second to last page before you actually add it to your category, they have accessories listed. They have USB-C to USB adapter, $19. Thunderbolt 3 USB-C to Thunderbolt 2 adapter, $49. USB-C to Lightning cable, $25. You need that to plug in your phone to your new laptop you just bought. Belkin USB-C to Gigabit Ethernet adapter, $35. So, like, again, the idea of USB-C is great. Have two of them on one side and two USB Type A on the other. I think it makes a lot more sense. But
you sound less than convinced.
Yeah. I mean, I don't know. It's hard to justify these prices. I don't know.
Well, somebody must be out there paying them.
Oh, there are plenty, no doubt.
Maybe it's just to get you into the Apple store to, buy something smaller and slower. AirPods are delayed, which I was kind of shocked by. Don't expect them to roll out in October. Apple says, quote, in this article by TechCrunch, they need a little more time. Quote, the early response to AirPods has been incredible. We don't believe in shipping a product before it's ready, and we need more time before AirPods are ready for their customers, an Apple spokesperson told TechCrunch. I would like to think that they were making them sound less sucky before they ship them.
But can you do that last minute? I don't know.
Well, not without massively changing probably the engineering of the of the physical hardware. It'll be curious. It'll be very, very curious to see if they. I'm sure they will never talk about what they changed unless they did something to make them improve performance. I mean, I wonder if it's a hardware issue, a software issue, a combination of the above. But as Matthew Pazzarino notes in the TechCrunch article, they don't want to screw this one up. My words, not his sentiment. That would be awkward. Now that we've taken your headphone jack and forced you to buy these overpriced and easy to lose AirPods, we want to make sure that the hours of use you get before losing them under the couch or having your cat steal one or your toddler flush them down the toilet is utterly exquisite. That was probably rude even by my standards. What's up with the Fanatec ClubSport V2 Ecosystem? I was like, are you involved in some sort of fantasy basketball league, man? What's going on here?
Not me. This is actually a racing gear setup that Josh took a look at. And I can't, we were debating last night whether or not it was Fanatec or Fanatec. And I went with Fanatec, and Josh went with Fanatec for the company name, but that's FANATEC. I'm sticking with it. So this is about as high quality as you can get for simulated racing configuration, right? So I'm not even, I'm not a part of this ecosystem. I'm not involved in this craziness that they go through, but he could not stop talking about the high quality builds of this hardware, all metal construction, like super strong retention mechanisms to attach to your table, or obviously this is the type of stuff that somebody who like gets a dedicated chair and frame for their basement, right, is going to use for that. Desk mount heavy, very tight clamping mechanisms. It's got the ability to adjust the angle after the fact.
I would also like to point out, having seen some people that taught themselves or sort of use flying sims to keep them in shape for flying real planes in the real world, and having seen some people with some $1,000 plus, kind of driving rigs. It's nice when they overbuild these things, because I've never seen anybody kind of rip the flight controller off the desk, but I have seen people rip steering wheels or break loose pedals. So overbuilding these sounds like a really good idea. It's also, when you get into the button controls and the paddle shifters, they're pretty outrageous. It's pretty impressive stuff. Yeah, like with a full-on quick release steering wheel.
Right. Yeah. It's this is like, there's a universal hub. It's just kind of like the base with all the kind of that right there. Yeah, you're looking at with like all the buttons and kind of controls on it, and it's Xbox and PC. You have a quick release mechanism on the back of it to attach it to the base station. Like, look at the pedals. They actually have force in the brake pedal. Like you feel force backwards in the brake pedal as you apply it. It's not just like a static spring. Right. This is an all in all with the shifter and all that type of stuff, and the wheel and the base and the hot swap, quick disconnect, everything. It's about $2,000 worth of gear here. To get this up and running. And like you said, he came away super impressed. And the customization is there for you to modify things as you like, both in terms of hardware and software. But he was sad to have to send it back. I know that. So
this is good.
It is. Yeah.
It's much nicer than when you're like, I hated that piece of delete expletive.
True. You get 12-month warranty on parts, which, is, I don't know what how that compares necessarily, but in my mind is like, you would hope you get a little bit more for these types of things. But if you are a really, really dedicated driving racing sim enthusiast, this is an article to go look at, because it's going to make you want all this stuff, but probably you still won't want to buy it. But like last week, we talked about a $5,000 projector, but you didn't really want to buy it. So there you go.
There you have it.
Yeah.
We should take the moment to thank our friends over at ring.com, ring.com/TWiCH. I could probably say that normally, ring.com/Twitch. This episode of This Week in Computer Hardware is brought to you by the Ring Video Doorbell. There's a home burglary every 13 seconds. Most burglaries happen in broad daylight. You know why? Because you're not home. Burglars will ring a doorbell, make sure you're away. Then they start kicking things in and taking your stuff. The Ring Video Doorbell has been proven to stop burglaries before they happen by allowing you to see and speak to anyone approaching your door using your smartphone. Think about that. You're going up to do something naughty at somebody's house, and suddenly Ryan starts speaking at you, and he can do it whether you're at his home or at his work, because he is a Ring user himself. Ring's using their advanced motion technology to protect your entire property with their Ring of Security kits. All kits include a Ring Video Doorbell and a solar security sign, and may include a stick-up cam, solar panel, or chime. They've got Pro kits, which have a Slim Video Doorbell Pro with crystal clear 1080p HD video and night vision, hardwired so it never needs to charge. The wireless and weatherproof HD stick-up cam keeps an eye on other parts of your property and allows you to hear and speak to visitors with two-way talk. Get off my lawn, kid. Plug the chime into any standard power outlet to know when you have a visitor, even if your phone is in another room. The illuminated solar security sign deters intruders before they get to your door, because they know somebody's watching. Look, it's easy, people. The Ring Video Doorbell and stick-up cam install in just minutes. Working together, they provide 24/7 monitoring of your entire home, whether you're in the living room or thousands of miles away. And now you can connect your Ring Video Doorbell with your favorite smart locks and hubs for added convenience, monitoring, and security. I got to say, what's the last person, place, or thing you talked to with your Ring Video Doorbell, Ryan?
UPS guy 2 days ago, and then the day before that was a solicitor that I didn't want to answer the door for. There you go. Two fantastic use cases.
I mentioned it. Ryan's got one on his office door, one on his home door. Now you can join the millions of homeowners who protect their home with Ring. For a limited time this week in Computer Hardware, listeners can get up to $150 off one of the Ring of Security kits. Go to ring.com/Twitch. That's ring.com/TWiCH. We want to thank them for their support of This Week in Computer Hardware. Oh, my goodness. Yeah. Yeah, I was impressed, because you turned around and bought one of those almost immediately after you got the first one set up and running on your house. It's like, he must really like it.
It's true. It's true.
Google Pixel started shipping. this week. Shannon, my co-host on Tech Thing, got hands-on, did a review of it on Tech Thing this week. She expected to get it, decide it was nice, not a big improvement over a Nexus 6P, and it looks like she's actually going to keep it. Camera seems to be a pretty huge jump over the 6P, although there's occasionally some color issues with it. Battery life is way better than the last generation Nexus, and the screen looks gorgeous, and I like the fact that they did not make it a quad HD camera, although they did keep the resolution up fairly high, like I want to say 2560 by 1440. Let me double check on that. I'm thinking of the Pixel XL, right? The Pixel is the 5-inch. The Pixel XL is the 5.5 inch. It's funny how they quote QHD AMOLED at 534 pixels per inch on the Pixel XL, full HD or 1080p AMOLED at 441 pixels per inch on the Pixel. So 3,450 milliamp hour battery on the Pixel XL. Really good. They were claiming. Go ahead.
I was gonna say, have you had hands on with one yet? I have not still.
Shannon bought one. It was delivered. She went completely hands-on with it. She was kind of blown away because her phones, she's usually trashed the battery on her Nexus by the end of the day. You know, they're talking about 14 hours of internet use on Wi-Fi or LTE for the Pixel XL. And it seems to be living very, very close to those promises. You know, Gorilla Glass 4. I just like
that they list that now. Like, as in, instead of just like talk time and standby time, which are how nobody ever uses their phone.
But a very old and respectable benchmarks for battery life. Well, part of this, right? This is that you know, we talked about it when the Pixel was announced, where it sounded a lot like the iPhone 7 in that they were running two faster processors and two slower processors, or two 2.15 gigahertz cores and two 1.6 gigahertz cores on the Snapdragon 821. 32 or 128 gigabytes of RAM, which is not my favorite option. There's no 64 gigabyte option. I guess they figure you're either going to go cheap or you'll want all of it. The low light performance on that main camera looks very, very good, but part of it is that it seems to function best if you leave HDR on if you're doing low light photography. Kind of still getting deep into that one. USB Type-C charging, the nano SIM, but no micro SD SIM as far as I know. So
I think somebody's sending me one to take a look at, or I get like 4 days with it or something. Nice. And I'm eager to try it. So actually, I don't even know if I'm getting the normal or the XL, but we'll see. Yeah,
they both seem to be pretty nice. Shannon hated the speakers. That was one of her big complaints.
Okay.
And the sort of fingerprint touchpad on the back of the phone, I think, is just irritating. But performance, it seems to be noticeably faster than XP, and the battery life is a big improvement. I think that's what kind of shocked her. Fingerprint sensor on the back, not as awesome. But we were joking because I was always like, who cares about the speakers on your phone? Use headphones. She's like, I don't have to use headphones because the speakers on my phone are so good. So that was, I'll keep everybody posted on what the final decision is on that one. Internet of Things is profoundly broken. In case you weren't sort of following the denial of service attack, the distributed denial of service attack that hit Dyn DNS last week, that basically took out internet access for a whole lot of people for a whole lot of major services. That was pretty intense. What's kind of horrifying about it, Krebs on Security's done some really good write-ups on it. Because he was subject to a very similar distributed denial of service attack. The Mirai malware was at the heart of this. It has since been, amongst other things, essentially open source. There are people selling plug-and-play Mirai, DDoS kits for $7,500. What it comes down to is a small group of Internet of Things appliances are so profoundly insecure, they are really, really easy to scan for en masse and then infect. For example, in some cases, Telnet and SSH are open. Standardized passwords aren't changing. Logins and IDs that make them super easy to access. So if you haven't changed the passwords on your, the login ID and the password on your router, please do so. And if you have devices on your network that have login IDs and passwords, please change them. There's a possibility if you're worried about being a part of this, there are a couple of manufacturers that seem to be responsible for a big part of the Mirai attacks. It's pretty crazy. Krebs did a really great article, Who Makes the Internet of Things Under Attack? And it's pretty crazy, right? Because they are constantly scanning the internet for factory default usernames and passwords. And for the most part, that gets it, but it's like Dahua cameras, an Axis IP camera, Anko, ACTI, Zhengzhouwan Optical, High Silicon, just a whole ZTE, a bunch of Xerox printers. Don't leave standard usernames and passwords. There's like 68 username and password pairs in the botnet source code, Krebs says. Quote, many of those are generic and are used by dozens of products, including routers, security cameras, printers, and digital video recorders. So, this is bad.
And it was one of those things that it literally kind of affected everybody. Well, yeah. I think it was more predominant on like the east side of the country. But like I couldn't load up Twitter and a lot of other, like my QuickBooks service I couldn't access, things like that. And it made some of the concerns like very real for people. Me
in a way they haven't been.
So yeah. Like, oh, that's all it takes. And suddenly, like I couldn't pay bills anymore for that day or so through QuickBooks, right, for the business. So yeah, you're like, okay, yeah. Let's figure this all out, everybody. Let's get this right.
What's going on here? Yeah, it's there's a lot of learning to be done here. It looks like almost everybody that uses, I think it's Zhongmai Technologies. You can kind of, DVR and IP camera circuitry boards are getting kind of hit with this. They're possibly doing a recall, but I don't even think they're even quite sure how to make that happen. But we talked about this some on Tech Thing, and I'm going to remind everybody again, like, change your passwords on make sure you don't use the factory password on any device in your house. Make sure you don't use the factory login for any of the devices in your, on your house. Make sure you update these things. The nice thing about Mirai is it doesn't, you basically, if you unplug the device and replug it in, it logs back in. The downside is it may be scanned and infected before you can change things. Some of the worst case scenarios are things like Telnet and SSH are enabled for devices at levels that the end user can't access, so the malware can keep getting in there. Really interesting thing happened as a result of this. The Senate Cybersecurity Caucus, which I think goes back to June of this summer. One of the co-founders sent a letter, Senator Mark Warner sent a letter to the Federal Trade Commission, Department of Homeland Security, the FCC. Said, quote, manufacturers today are flooding the market with cheap, insecure devices with few market incentives to design the products with security in mind or to provide ongoing support. And buyers seem to be unable to make informed decisions between products based on their competing security features, in part because there are no clear metrics. And what that basically says is the market's basically said make it as cheap as you can because nobody wants to pay for anything. And if you make it as cheap as you can't afford to do support or, for that matter, to do much in the way of security vetting in the first place. So it will be interesting to see how this spurs or does not spur the markets, the manufacturers, to start fixing this stuff.
Right.
And, because there's just about no simple way to detect this unless you want to start getting your Wireshark on and looking for packets, which is a non-trivial endeavor. So yeah. On a lighter note, there's a new 750 watt power supply
We don't have to talk about this very long, but I think you need to see the first photograph on this page.
It glows.
Not that one, the next one.
Oh yeah.
So that's the selling factor here. Like we've seen basically essentially identical power supplies from them before,
but not
now,
with backlit power connectors.
Not with correct.
Or modular connectors.
Yeah, so they're modular and there's LEDs on the power supply side of it, and it kind of illuminates it. I think it both looks neat and maybe makes it easier to plug in these cables inside a case. Is it necessary? No.
That's pretty thin. Are there 16 million colors? Can I program it to match the rest of the lighting inside my case if it's not white?
I don't think so. I don't know. I think that's a big no.
Somebody tell EVGA there's an opportunity here.
I mean, we're really only one half of a step away from that, right? I think we might have seen an RGB power supply before, but it was the fan light, the light around the fan. This is actually, and that would be dumb because most of the time those fans are pointed down at the bottom of the case, like, underneath where you would see them. This would actually make more sense if they could make these RGB. But yeah.
I would like to point out, while I am mocking the lighting system on this, this is a $130 750 watt power supply with a 10-year warranty, 80 plus gold certified, which makes it 92% efficient. It's quiet. It's got good reliability and a gold PC Perspective award. I do appreciate that Lee noted that, quote, under minor weaknesses, do we really need 9 different EVGA 750 watt power supplies to choose from? And I would be one who would say no.
Yeah, that's a fair question. Of all at similar capacities, so yeah.
Well, sometimes you just want to cover the market, but that's a pretty good price for a pretty badass power supply.
Yep. I
mean, we're looking at something with 4.6 stars. The SuperNOVAs get on Amazon. That's out of almost 2,600 product reviews. Yep. I feel comfortable in saying that this is a beloved power supply, which is not something you say a lot about power supplies. 1050 and 1050 Ti, speculation continues. Ship date have they shipped? And I did not notice this week.
The reviews went up. I didn't have I was out of town the whole previous week, so I haven't finished my review yet. The reviews are up. The specs are out. All that is out, and I think they started shipping yesterday, day before. So you can see there, the full official specs are released. It's GP107 GPU, 760 stream processors. It's basically takes the same hardware configuration from the GTX 950, which was obviously Maxwell based. And you get to increase the clock speed by about 25% or so on base and boost frequencies. And then the memory goes up about 100 megahertz, and you double the memory capacity from 2 to 4 gigs. But you're still staying within that 75 watt power level, and about I think it's $139 for the 1050 Ti and $109 for the 1050. So very budget conscious parts that seem to compete exactly where they're supposed to. We're still finishing up our testing, but it looks it's to be on par.
We're looking at 960 performance for $130. That's pretty crazy. GTX 960 level performance right in there. That's pretty awesome.
Yeah,
I've lost Ryan.
No. I'm trying to feel I've read some other reviews, but I haven't finished all of our testing yet, and it'll be interesting to see how it compares to the RX 460, RX 470, because it kind of AMD right before this product launched basically adjusted their pricing $10 on both of those parts, kind of preemptively knowing that they were going to have more competition there than they had just a few weeks prior. So. It should still work out well, and the benefit obviously of not having the power connector necessary means that you can upgrade cheaper systems. You can upgrade PCs that are just kind of laying around the house, maybe that you don't have confidence in the power supply, or don't just physically don't have those right connectors. don't have to worry about it. So that will be something we look at as well.
I'm thinking about a 750 Ti and a very, very small computer that's going to get replaced very, very soon. This is perfect.
Yeah.
Yeah, 1050 Ti is really, really tempting for the money. Oh my goodness. Sorry. Just went to check another benchmark, and of course it for reasons I will never understand, it took it from the 750 Ti versus the 1050 on GPU Boss, magically turned it into, I must have clicked on the wrong place, because it went from to a GTX 970 versus a GTX 1060, which is hardly the comparison I was looking for. Man, computers and the internet are hard. I don't think I have to, man. I don't think I have to. I'm very curious. You found an article from Tech Report, the AimPad R5 analog keyboard, and I was curious, what exactly did they mean by an analog keyboard?
Meaning that if you are in a game and you push the key down a little bit, you might walk, but as you push it down more, you may run. So think of it as like an analog trigger on a game controller, I guess. So instead of detecting a binary on or off, they detect different levels of pressure. The WASD block, Q, E, R, and F keys, and its arrow keys all include analog sensors. Under each of those keys, I'm reading from the Tech Report story here, there's an IR, LED, and sensor baked into the keyboard's PCB. Those devices work together to measure the amount of light reflected off the bottom of the key. From that info, the keyboard can precisely determine how far each key is pressed. And so they're using standard Cherry MX red switches with those RGB LEDs underneath. So I'd be curious to see how this gets implemented. There's obviously some software that has to go into this. It's not something that Windows understands natively, would be my guess, or that games understand natively. But I just actually got an email from this guy, and he lives in Indiana, pretty close to us. So he wants to come out and do a demo and bring us a device. So we'll probably try to do a video with him to demonstrate some of that type of stuff. So could be cool.
I like cool.
Innovation in the keyboard space.
There's nothing wrong with that. He looks over at his stash of 20-year-old IBM Model M keyboards. What's coming up? What else? Is there anything outside of your 1050 Ti, 1050 review? And I personally would love to see you also in that review the 960, 950, and 750 Ti for benchmarking comparisons. So I know exactly where all of my budget cards fit in.
You're like every Twitter user that ever messages me.
Thanks.
Yeah.
You know, you didn't
include my card in your benchmark review. Oh, it takes so long.
Yes, but that's why you're the man.
It's a stretch nowadays. What else we have going? I know Sebastian has a lot of stuff going on. He'll have a review of the Logitech G231 gaming headset. That's $69 gaming headset that actually he says has surprisingly good audio for the price and build, of all of it. We have the 1050 Ti. We'll include RX 470 and 460 benchmarks, which we had not had up until this point. And other than that, we're going to try to move everything and hook it all back up at the other building and see if we can get it to work again. That's kind of our main objective for the next 7 days, more or less. So load up a 26-foot U-Haul and drive 1.6 miles and then unload a 26-foot U-Haul. Probably several times, because we're just going to all the stuff that's on shelves with wheels, it's going to take shrink wrap and wrap it around it and then push it up onto the ramp, onto the thing, and hope things don't break on the way there. So
this is that's our goal. Well, everyone out there, if you think about it, say some kind words to whatever deity you believe in and hope that Ryan and the crew get their stuff moved safely.
Thank you.
Just saying.
What do you have coming up?
Oh, my goodness. got an event tonight with a whole bunch of PR vendors. I'm kind of curious to see. It's like the PepCom holiday event, so I'm going to see some shiny objects there. We got a sub-$1,000 gaming laptop from Lenovo. We got some new headsets to listen to, some follow-up on the Pixel, and oh yeah, I have almost every mesh router currently being sold, benchmarking in my house right now.
Nice.
And it's slightly less awful than benchmarking GPUs. That's all I'm going to say.
Okay.
But I'll know, hopefully by next week, I'll have lots of things to say about Eero and Amplify and the new H. Talk to you about it next week because there's too much going on. Yep. Too much mesh streaming to just discuss at this point.
Yep.
With that, ladies and gentlemen, we want to thank you for listening to This Week in Computer Hardware. We are available every week here at twit.tv/TWICH. You can find all of our older shows at that URL. And, of course, you can learn how to subscribe. If you want to talk to us, best way to ask us a question is at Ask Ryan Trout or Ask Patrick Norton. And with that, ladies and gentlemen, we're going to get Ryan off to his shrink wrap and moving blanket glory. I'm Patrick Norton.
I'm Ryan Trout.
We'll see you next week on Twitch.